I'm Shane Thomas, and this is Analysing Doctor Who. I'm joined by Jonathan Wilkinson and Jen Allen, and we are here to analyse the Interstellar Song Contest. And if you have any thoughts on our upcoming thoughts on this episode or anything else Doctor Who based, you can email us at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com. Now, we usually start the episode rating, but before, we're just going to start with some Doctor Who news. I guess we call this a revival of the Doomsday Clock segment, which dropped online yesterday. And we should say, as when we always do these segments, we're not often or always reporting fact, we're just reporting stuff. News that's been reported and how accurate it is remains to be seen. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. But it does concern the future of the show. And the news, apparently according to a Mirror report, and it was backed up by TV Zone, was that as far as the future of the show goes, that there are no plans for this to be the final series. And that there may be a delay, there may be nothing until 2027, but they are planning to make more Doctor Who, even if Disney turns off their money taps. That's the story. We don't know how true it is. It might be bullshit, but obviously our preview mainly concerned a lot of negative and worrying news. We have to be fair. This has been reported. We'll see if it comes to fruition or not. We don't know, even though if the show was to continue, 2027 would make sense. Part of the reporting itself was that the Disney money, while Disney has contributed money, of course, that it's maybe not been as critical as was commonly assumed. And one point from the story that particularly that was invoked in that vein was that in terms of the clarity of the image, that for Disney, if to put something on Disney Plus, it has to basically be a 4K image. They won't stream anything that's not a 4K image. Where on the BBC, it just has to be a 2K image. And if you think of how this, since the show's come back under Russell, how the series has looked just visually compared to others, you can see a bit of a difference there. So hypothetically, if it was like, well, Disney aren't showing it no more, and Disney aren't giving the show no money anymore, so it's just going to be on BBC One and iPlayer, the actual image and itself won't be as crisp, but apparently the money spent, because they film the episodes they usually do, and then in the editing process, and it's like, okay, we have to smooth out this image. That itself costs quite a bit of money. And so in some respects, they actually would be saving money, because to have something in Disney, it has to be 4K. It's a non-negotiable. So these are things in the report, but that's something obviously to keep an eye on. There has been a little bit of celebrating and rejoicing online from some fans, and I'm like, let's just wait. It's better than saying that Doctor Who will never be made again, but let's just wait initially before we go ahead and say that the show is saved. But there have been memes. The call the ambulance, but not for me meme has already been proliferating. I think it's best to keep because we're keeping our powder dry. But in the interest of full disclosure, and just like, why are you speaking about it? Well, we've seen it, we've mentioned it, we will see, and when there's more to say about it, we'll talk about it then. But otherwise, we will go into our episode analysis. So, Jonathan, would you give this episode out of 10?
I really enjoyed this episode. I'm going to give it an entertaining 7 out of 10.
Jen, what's your rating?
I was slightly less entertained, so I gave it a 6, and it's not because of reasons that we'll discuss during the podcast. So,
okay, my rating is also 7. So, Jen, what was your favourite part of this episode?
The general making it around Eurovision, which you have to understand, here, us Yanks do not have the enthusiasm of Eurovision that you all have over the pond. We just go, Eurovision? Okay. I mean, most of us didn't even know what it is until about 20 years ago. So the fact that this is basically an intergalactic version of it, I don't think Americans are going to get it the way that everyone else does, but I got it because I've actually followed Eurovision occasionally over the years, depending on who shows up for it, depending on the country and so forth. The fact that they put it at the same time that the actual Eurovision is happening this year is also, I think, was genius. I like the overarching idea of making it Eurovision, but bigger. That was my favorite part of the episode.
Jonathan, what was your favourite part of this?
I really liked Angry Doctor. I think it's a side that we haven't seen in 15, and we haven't seen for a while. really see Jodie get angry that often.
We already saw it once in The Haunting of Villa Diodati, that was it.
Yep, and we've obviously seen a lot of in touch with emotions so far, but not real true anger, and such anger that he tips over the line. You're going a little bit too far with this Doctor. And I like this kind of stuff because we always get that stuff like the Doctor doesn't like violence, etc., etc. And there's tons of examples, new Who and old Who, where the Doctor clearly has gone over the line and people just conveniently forget about them. But yeah, they really embraced it in this episode, and I liked getting to see that. I also think it's worth pointing out, I think Britain has a completely different relationship with Eurovision than the rest of Europe does as well, which is probably why we always send a load of rubbish over there, because we see it as this high camp, not very serious event, and I think Europe takes it a lot more serious than we do.
Like yourself, Jonathan, specifically the monologue when he threatens Kid. I was thinking for part of this is, you mentioned obviously, the anger, the fury. The Doctor mentions that he thought all these people had died and he got just triggered by that. And Ncuti is probably, to a degree, pulling on his own family history there, because his family escaped a genocide. That's how he came to be in this country. I mean, who knows what his life is if his family don't have to escape Rwanda. It's not something he would have had direct experience with, but his parents would have done. And I'm sure family and family friends would have done. And I'm sure if you're even descendant, the same if you descended from any atrocity, that it's there with you to an extent, even if you weren't there at the time. And I suspect he was pulling from that. I mean, that great line that Belinda has about the Doctor, if he's angry, this whole world is going to shake. We know the Doctor can go to that place, but it's the first time we've seen him go to that place. And then if you think about what he goes on to do, so at this point, Doctor still thinks Belinda's dead. He's threatened Kid. He's now trying to figure out a way to get to Kid. I think the hologram stuff, and the two drones are coming, and Mike and Gary are trying to warn him, and the Doctor's ignoring them. You think the drone soldier's going to sneak on the Doctor, and the Doctor kills it very quickly, very casually. And what's notable about that scene, that actually terrifies Mike and Gary at first. They're actually really scared of the Doctor, and when he realizes that Gary can help him, and he shouts at Gary, and Gary's like, yeah, and it's like, I like you. Gary and Mike both breathe thoroughly. Oh, thank God for that, because it's like he's going to kill us. He's going to kill everything. That this is the first time we've seen the oncoming storm embodied in the 15th, and even that speech, like, and Nchuti's not the youngest actor to play the Doctor, but in a way he feels like the youngest, partly because he looks younger than he is, and also I think how he's played it. But this was the first time I felt like I was watching a millennia-old being, someone who's lived for a long time and is capable of a lot. And what you're seeing in these moments, and then with what he does, the basic torturing of Kid, is what the Doctor and what Time Lords are capable of. This is kind of who they are as a species, and the Doctor is often the exception. Because generally when we see Time Lords in the show, it's not good. The Doctor's like kind of the only good one, and not all the time. The Time Lord has... I remember hearing it once said about Superman, that when you have Superman's powers, you have two options. You save the world or you conquer it. That's all you can really do when you have that. And you realize with Time Lords and the Doctor, when you have those capabilities, particularly around human beings, you are so much more powerful than them. And you realize most of the time the Doctor is actually deliberately holding back and tamping down some of their instincts, some of their socialization, some of their power. When it lets loose, you see some of the consequences. The Doctor gives that speech to the kids that I've seen a million like you, and talks about, you want revenge in your cold, filthy heart. And you realise the Doctor's talking about himself. And whether the Doctor realises it or not, he's talking about himself. Because all the Doctor's doing is very vengeful and cruel and cold. And you have to remember as well, the Doctor, we're talking about, we'll get more into the Hellions, but like the Hellions are a species whose land has been stolen, taken from them. Well, the Doctor has some connection with that experience, because the Doctor would feel a connection with a Gallifrey that is also gone. The episode in general is like Juno Dawson's really kind of Trojan horses, and it was meant to be a frothy, happy episode about campness and Eurovision. This episode is really about oppressed groups and how you react to being persecuted, and how different people from the same group don't react the same way. But the Doctor's one of these people. You're seeing in a way how he's reacted to his own trauma and his own persecution when he gets angry in this way. And then we get the Susan appearance, and you can see the Doctor is blocking. Susan's in his head, and twice the Doctor does all they can to push that to the back of the mind and ignore it and not engage with it. And that is the Time Lord without a human problem. We've seen it before. This comes back to what you're saying about Jonathan. There's plenty of examples of this, especially when a human's not around. You're seeing what a Time Lord is without a human or just without a companion. And it's really underscored when we know Belinda is safe, and Kid is arrested, and the Doctor says to Kid, like, the way they speak is almost like, okay, we'll see them again, but also the Doctor makes a point of saying that ice you put in my heart, it might still be there, it might be there forever. And given how the episode ended and the next couple of weeks, he may actually need it. Like, the Doctor went to a place he hasn't gone to yet and probably doesn't want to go to. And this could be very interesting about the finale, that he may have to go back to that place, even if he doesn't want to. And the capability is clearly there. And the warning of the ice in my heart is still there, might still be there forever. It is, to an extent, a warning to future adversaries, and maybe a warning to fans, and particularly younger fans. Like, for some, Ncuti will be their first Doctor. And this is a different Doctor from what they've seen before. And this might be a bit of a warning to them of, don't think this is going to be a one-off. And what it all is, as I often do, I refer back to Stephen Moffat's exit interview when he left as showrunner. And he speaks about the Doctor and he says,
the idea of the Doctor is that to which he aspires. He would like to be the Doctor, but he's not the Doctor. He's a bloke who stole a time machine for fun and hijinks. That's what he did. He did it for a giggle. He did it for a laugh. He did it for fun. He's got this idea in his head, developed over years, that he could be like the Doctor, but the Doctor is a fictional construct. The man who is never cruel and never cowardly isn't him, because sometimes he is cruel and sometimes he is cowardly, and that's where he's failing to live up to this idea.
But I agree with you, Jonathan. Yeah, this was my favourite part. The Doctor can't be like this every week, but this is always my favourite type of Doctor and performance from the Doctor and side of the Doctor. I always love seeing this side. It stretches the show. It pushes it beyond just a week-to-week disposable kids show. There's more depth to this character. And scenes like this, I like the proof. Scenes like this are the proof that this isn't a disposable show, even though sometimes it just feels like it, but it's not. It is more, and the character is more, and you sometimes see that in examples like this. Jonathan, I come to your least favourite part of the episode.
So there was a part just after everyone gets boosted into space, hundreds of thousands of people, and it's really dark. Because for all you know, they're all dead. Although you don't, because it's Doctor Who, and I don't think on screen Doctor Who is not going to kill 100,000 people. It'll imply it, but anyway. And then it was still trying to keep up this campy humour until we found out that they were all still alive and it was fine. And I just found, like, tonally, I struggled with that. I was like, you've just had this scene that wouldn't have looked out of when all these people jettisoned off into space in a terrorist attack. Because that's what it is, and it wouldn't have been out of place in something like The Expanse. Even the way it's shot, where it has that beautiful, like, really quite beautiful cinematographic of the silhouette and all the people floating off into space.
That's a tremendous shot. That's a tremendous shot.
Such a good shot. And then a minute later, we're having this campy humour joke, and I'm like, I get it, but for me, it was a bit of a tonally whiplash. But I wasn't quite.
What, you're talking about how Rylan goes, oh, again?
Yeah. And yeah, that, and also just like I think I can't remember if it's the Doctor or Belinda is in that group, and he's obviously, they both think each other's dead, kind of thing. And then one of the companions they're with at that time makes a joke, and it's just really campy Eurovision style humour, and I was like, And then 5 minutes later, we were like, oh, he can save them all. He's fine, he's going to save them all. But for a moment there, I was like, you've just done one of the most darkest things that's possibly ever been done in a Doctor Who episode. And now you're making a Graham Norton style quip. And I was like, a bit whiplash for me.
I do see what you're saying, like, because it is the humour is very much like that up to that point, and you just think that it should have changed, like that it should have stayed austere and quite dark for the rest of the episode until they come back at the end.
Yeah, I don't think they had to stay for the entire episode. I just think they had to make it clear that the Doctor kind of had a plan to save all these guys sooner than let's make another joke about Eurovision. I can't remember what it was. But I turned to Rory and was like, was that a bit of a whiplash? And Rory was like, so it might just be me. But
well, it's your least favourite part. I mean, it is. When I have seen some of the criticism for this episode or the stuff that some people didn't like, there has been a general point of there was a lot that didn't cohere. Stuff worked individually fine, but maybe not as an entire whole. I mean, one of the things we spoke about last week on the pod was the how it was more my thing of how it was Inua Ellam's first ever episode, and quite early in his TV, he hasn't written much for TV either, and how I think and I love the first like 15 minutes or so, and just once we got deep into the plot, it was just a bit convoluted how that was all delivered. And I said, like, if this was his third or fourth episode, it'd probably be fine. It was just a bit inelegant. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if similar things happen here, because again, Juno Dawson's first ever Doctor Who, she's written an audiobook essentially for BBC Sounds, of Doctor Who, but she's never written for this show. Again, I don't think she's got a lot of TV writing experience. So I'm wondering if that's coming through.
Yeah, maybe.
As with anything,
just on a wiki, it does look like she has basically written audio stuff and not major stuff before.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. So that might be part of it, and probably not surprising when you've got debut people doing the job. As with anything in life, you generally get better at something. You've done it a few times. Your first time at something generally isn't your best effort at it. It didn't bother me as much, but I have seen generic criticisms about how the elements of the episode didn't always come together well, and I think that kind of probably aligns with what you're saying. So Jen, come to your least favourite part of this.
All right, not to get on YouTube, but my least favorite part was the sudden shift of the Doctor from nice guy to not so nice guy. For different reasons than you guys already pointed out. I just felt it tonally, it was jarring. Not to get on Ncuti for his performance, it was amazing. I just felt like, as already mentioned, there's been some tonal shifts that didn't quite really work in this episode, and I felt that was one of them. I understand where the Doctor is coming from with this rage. I just don't feel it was executed well. It kind of came out of, I won't say nowhere, but it just, tonally, it didn't fit for me. So I was just like, because it doesn't really explain thoroughly why he's upset. It could be because of Belinda. It could be because of the people who are floating up there. It could be because of him. It could be his past. It could be... It's never really fully addressed. I mean, he makes some examples of it, but I think in general it didn't really work as part of the overarching plot of the episode, if that makes any sense.
Do you think it needed something from maybe that early... Basically, before the kind of roof is broken and everyone gets sucked up, you needed something from that to him threatening Kid. You needed something in between that would help
like another
transition.
Extra scene or two that would have been thrown in to better explain his rage. I think that would have helped, but again, it's 45 minutes of story that they have to put together, so they can only do so much in so little time. And the fact that this entire season they've been throwing in various Easter eggs from previous Who's, like we saw Susan in flashbacks with the original actress, yay. But we're like, why? I hope that will be explained. That was a very cool Easter egg for like major, super diehard Who fans, especially of old Who. But where does it come from? We don't know yet. Was that part of his rage? We don't know. It's not really explained properly, in my opinion.
Well, as far as Susan goes, I am and I don't have like inside info, but I'm certain there will be a lot more with that. So I'm not worried too much. If that was all we got from Susan this series, then I would have bigger questions. I feel confident that won't be. So I'm fine with that because I feel we'll get more in the next 2 weeks regarding Susan. And because this is something I've come back to a bit in the series, so I don't know for sure. And ultimately, you've got to write within the limits you've been given. But I suspect this might be another example again of scenes being written, maybe being filmed, and the episode just getting a little bit boxed in by the time limit. I think this week was 47 minutes. And I suspect if they had not even an hour, but just like an extra 8 to 10 minutes, it might help. Just because I mentioned this last week as well, and it has happened 2 or 3 times this series. Like, episodes have been good, but there are times where it's like you just need a little bit extra. There's an extra scene there that almost feels like it's missing. That would give the context for what happens next. And I suspect there's just a bit of 47 minutes, that's got to go. That scene's got to go. That scene's got to go. We really like that scene, but we've got to lose it because we literally cannot fit any more in.
Right. It just felt like that needed like one more scene or maybe 2. And it would have been a lot better, especially in terms of the Doctor this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't, again, as with Jonathan, it didn't bother me as much. I think that's because I'm just going on previous Doctor Who history of previous Doctor Who. But to come back to what I said, for some, Ncuti would have been there first. And so maybe for them as well, that'd be a bit weird. Whoa, almost like it did for Belinda. Like, where the fuck that come from?
I mean, you did
so
just witness 100,000 people jettisoned. Although it then turns out he knew that they weren't. This is one of those episodes, I've discussed this a bit. There's a lot of plot holes when you think about it, but when you weren't thinking about it, it was rated good because it's entertained me, so I stopped thinking about them. Like, it's him that stops, as my understanding was, it was him that basically puts in place another bubble so they will all survive. So he already knows they're not dead.
Well, I think, isn't it? I think he's giving him a chance. It's like I'm giving him an extra. I'm giving some. I don't know 100%, but this might help. Rather than this is definitely good. Rather than all right, it's calm, I'll be fine.
Yeah, you saw him messing with that panel on the side of the booth that they
just
were
before,
in.
just before, which that was very much Chekhov's sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, I was like, how did he know to do that? I don't. That was another thing that bothered me. It's just like he seemed to be a little too in the know of certain things. I don't know. It was convenient, to say the least.
I will say, and obviously it really depends on each individual fan how they feel. But if you are missing these bits because you're being entertained, I think that is a skill in itself. Because I've seen plenty of episodes when it hasn't entertained me, and you really do notice that shit. And if you're not noticing that shit, I think it's partly to the episode's credit. But I think there have been some fans who, I didn't say like worst episode ever, but maybe said, hold on, that scene there, or hold up, that scene there, or does that wholly make sense? So I think you two are both in line with some of the fandom after this episode. My least favourite part is actually Freddie. I hate to single out individual actors or each individuals because then it's like I'm attacking them personally. We're just talking about the work, not them as people. But Freddie Fox's performance as Kid, I was very disappointed by.
You were not convinced he was a terrorist, is what you're saying?
Well, he's an actor that when because you always with every Doctor Who series, when we get close to episode 1, you get this person's going to be in it, this person's going to be in it. We're going to see this person. And when Freddie Fox was announced, that might have been the one I was excited for the most because I'm a big fan of his. He's worked with Russell before. The last time I worked with Russell was on a show called Cucumber, which I thought he was exceptional in. I absolutely loved his performance in that. And generally, he plays antagonists for the most part in his career, if you look at his body. He definitely doesn't play nice guys.
Yeah, I was reading he tends to play a lot of antagonistic characters, and he looks it.
And he came off incredibly one note, like in any real depth, even though there is, if you think of the character, there's a lot going on there, but that's not coming through in his line readings, in how he played it, in how he held himself. I'm kind of wondering whether he's gotten the, he's accepted the part. He's read the script. I don't know what the gap is between getting the script and then being on set, but I'm wondering if he just didn't know how to play it. Because there are things like with actors of, okay, how am I going to play this? I'm going to play this. Which emotions am I going to really dial up and which ones am I going to not lean on as much? And I'm just not sure if he knew really how to play it. And it reminded me of like some of the worst of John Simmers, The Master, a little bit.
I could see that. Yeah. Are you thinking like he didn't know how to play a sympathetic villain?
No, not sympathetic. Just what am I going for here? Okay. There was a real lack of precision as far as the emotions he's signaling. Because what acting is, you're signaling emotions. You're signaling anger, happiness, joy, anxiety, sadness, whatever. And if you do it effectively, the audience, us, we feel it. Like, as we mentioned, myself and Jonathan mentioned some of the Ncuti scenes, he's signaling rage and anger and vengeance. It's like, yep, I can see that. I'm seeing it, I'm observing it, and I'm also feeling it from him. And I wasn't almost anything Freddie Fox did at all.
Yeah, I assume what they were kind of, obviously sympathetic villain because they've got a cause, but their actions don't. Yeah, kind of thing. So I was imagining, I don't know if anyone's seen The Rock with Ed Harris and Sean Connery.
I love Ed Harris in that movie, though.
So that's the kind of thing you're going for, isn't it? A villain where you're like, actually, he's got a very good point.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, it's one of those. It's become a thing lately. Is it villains with a cause that have the right heart but the wrong execution? That's become a thing lately. Look at Black Panther. That's the prime example that most people know about. But that's what I think they were trying to go for. But
again, probably not enough time in the episode.
Yeah, it needed really another scene or two. Yeah.
Like, did they really need the second Hellion in there? Could they have just had him? Because he had his army of robots.
Which never is explained either. How they got... I mean, I guess I could say Wynn did something. His girlfriend...
Yeah, and I think that was Wynn.
Yeah, she hacked him, I think, didn't she?
Yeah, because she's been working there for how long? So she would have been like inside woman. So that's how, but ironically mentioning Black Panther, he came off actually like a Phase 1 MCU villain. Not like Phase 3 when the villains did have a bit more depth to them. He came like a phase, those even though those early MCU films that were quite good, but everyone said, yeah, but usually the conclusion is quite shit. The conclusion, like the last 10 minutes ain't great and the villain's not great, but the rest of it's fine. That's what he came off as. And if you've never seen him act before, you probably actually think he's not a very good actor. You probably think he's a Nepo hire because, as you see, his surname is Fox. He comes from that family, the Fox, Redgrave clan.
Oh yeah, I knew he was with that, but I've known him from Slow Horses. I've been slowly watching that recently.
Yeah, I understand he's in that.
Yeah,
I understand he's in that.
He's a shitty character in that too, but I mean, that's the only thing I know him from other than this, and I don't know. It just it also fell flat for me. I didn't quite feel sympathetic for him. I felt more sympathetic for Wynn than him, and she's in less of the episode.
And I think that's down to the performance. I think the performance is a lot better. I'm feeling more of what she's sending to us in her acting. It was like, I don't think it was necessarily written terribly. I do think this is more the performance. And I mean, he's been in Cucumber. He's been in Slow Horses. I can't remember if he's dead or not. He showed up in House of the Dragon, season of House of the Dragon. I can't remember if he's been killed or not, but he's in that. I think he plays.
He probably did a lot of talking around a table if he's in House of Dragons.
Yes, a lot. He has. He has. I can't remember if he was in. He got killed in a battle scene. He has been involved in some battle scenes. So he's been in some stuff, and it's not like I don't rate him as an actor now. I just think something didn't go right. So maybe it was just a bad fit, or he wasn't sure how to play it. But he's a good actor. But if you'd only seen him in this, and then you saw him in something else, you'd probably be like, "Oh God, that guy again. How is he still getting work?" Like, he's good. But he was not good in this. I was looking forward to his performance, and I didn't enjoy it at all. So we move on, which will probably be our main topic, and it's the topic we had to set aside because it's the big takeaway from this episode as far as the reaction goes. and it happened after the end credits. I don't think everyone actually caught it first time. I think the credits started and some people changed the channel or turned their streaming thing off, and they found out that it was a bad idea to not wait an extra 10 seconds or so, because it's happened. There's so much talk about it. She's here. The Rani is now here. We have another bad generation. Jen, I'll come to you first on your thoughts about what happened and what now may happen at the Rani's now back in Doctor Who.
Well, now we know the point of Mrs. Flood being in all the episodes that she's been in, and kind of what her purpose has been. It's because of a Rani and the Rani, and they got another person of color to play the Rani this time around, and I think that's awesome. We'll see where this goes, because I have very little knowledge of the character originally, so I can't really give a whole lot of input. I think it'll be cool. She may feature in the next season, series, but we'll see. Obviously, she's going to have some direct correlation to this two-parter finale that we're about to get. But how much or how little remains to be determined. So I can't give a whole lot of insight because I barely remember the character. I hate to say it.
Jonathan, anything you have on this?
I mean, to be fair, that kind of sums up the issue. It's meant to be this big bad reveal. And I'm like, I know the Rani. The reason I know the Rani is because every single time a mysterious lady has turned up in New Who, the fandom has gone, it's the Rani, and been wrong. And that's the only reason. And I kind of get to the point now where Russell T Davies is, because he's obviously a big fanboy of Doctor Who, is one step away from being that guy who goes, yeah, I know you like New Who, but can you name 5 actors that didn't play the Doctor in the other series? Because it's getting like, okay, how many nods to the old... I mean, how the Rani stories within the 1980s? So the Rani's as old as I am, which is 40 next year. And he's had this reveal like, I'm the Rani. And I think thinks all the fandom are going, oh my god, it's the Rani. And most of them are like, who?
Well, it was the female master, as some people describe her as, but I think she's actually worse.
She's more experimental stuff, because I didn't look it up and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he did this last year on an even more obscure pull from last year, and it's like, okay, I get it, Russell, you really like Doctor Who, but if you don't want to use the classic villains that people know, which is fine, Cybermen, Daleks, Weeping Angels, etc., you could make someone new.
Well, Weeping Angels aren't classic. Weeping Angels.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be fair, when was there will be classic to some of the fans.
There will be to some, but there will be to some, but they're not technically like
they're in
pre-Eccleston.
They're in pre-Eccleston, but they're in the pantheon of iconic
big villains. Yes, they're in the pantheon of big villains.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like the ones that are instantly recognisable, where you think, oh shit, they're in trouble. Like even the Master. Like if you compare this reveal to Mrs. Reveal, where everyone was like, oh shit, but that was combined with the reveal of the Cybermen as well, and that was one of my favourite moments of Who. I think we've actually covered it before, Twist of Who, and I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, I believe that was our top 5 moments or top 5 scenes.
Yeah, top 5.
So that exists in the archive.
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah, I love that reveal. It had me like excited for the following week, and this reveal, I'm just like, meh. I don't know who this is. Should I be? Obviously revealed as a bad person, mainly because how she reacts to herself as well. And all of a sudden, Mrs. Flood is like subordinate to her. And you're like, oh, she's a bit of a bitch. But yeah, I'm not that excited. I suppose there's probably some proper fan people out there that are really excited. And does the twist really work? Because Mrs. Flood has been like all fourth wall breaking with us. But as my understanding is, the Rani is just another Time Lord. Like you said, Time Lords, on the whole, Time Lords are not very nice people. Master, the Rani, every time they've turned up on Gallifrey. Also, the Doctor keep referring to himself as the last ever Time Lord. He's getting a bit old hat now, since they all keep turning up every now and again.
I did see a joke online when someone said, like, it's incredible how clearly not every Time Lord's been wiped out by the 2 times Gallifrey's been destroyed.
Right. I mean,
But
he
yeah,
keeps saying
I-
that,
I
but
just-
it's not true. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it was okay. It was in the running for. If it hadn't been like post-credit kind of thing, it probably would have been my like low point of the episode because it just feels forced. And please look, I'm bringing this character back that you've all been asked. Like 5% of the viewership have been asking for guessing that it's going to be. It's like, okay. I'm just pulling numbers, but yeah.
Well, I don't. I think Russ was put in a situation where he could never satisfy everyone with this. I've said, I think, more than once over the previous weeks and months of this podcast is if and when the Rani comes back, some people actually will find it disappointing. And not because it's done in a disappointing way, but because people have built this up. I'm not saying you have, Jonathan, but people have built this up in their heads for so long that no matter what happened, if it wasn't as you want it to be perfectly in your head, and because you've been expecting it, then it doesn't have the same impact as, for example, Derek Jacobi becoming John Sim, as one example, or Sacha Darwin revealing himself.
The John Sim reveal is a perfect example because watching New Who, I didn't really know who the Master was, but I thought, oh fuck, we're in trouble now, aren't we? Whereas this, I'm like, and maybe that part of that's to do with the bi regeneration thing they've got going on at the moment, and maybe it doesn't quite have the same impact.
I was like, why are we doing another bi-gen? Okay, all right. And then they split the outfits.
Yes.
Well, that is a bi-generation, and like, why are we doing another one? Isn't that how it works now? That's kind of how it works now, isn't it?
Apparently so. I mean,
there's no long explanation about what a bi-generation is. Like this, I think the bi-generation, whether you like it or not, narratively it works because it's done very quickly and there's no long expository dialogue like there was when Ncuti splits from David Tennant, where it's like what, and people ask what the hell just happened. Where they're just like, as soon as it starts, I'm like, oh, bi-generation, because I now know what a bi-generation is.
So now we have 4 Time Lords, or do we have 2 Time Lords?
That is the question, isn't it?
Well, technically we have loads because
yes.
time doesn't go linear. So we actually have loads, and time doesn't work in a linear way. So all the Doctors are out there, all the Masters are out there, all the Ranis are out there. Probably ones we don't even know, including, like, as we saw a week ago, the Fugitive Doctor out there somewhere. So, ironically, and this is not Emma's fault, but Emma was led to believe she was under the understanding that the Rani's probably not coming back because the people who own, kind of like with Terry Nation and the Daleks IP, that you'd have to get permission from the people who own the Rani IP, and they didn't have that. Clearly, they have that. I don't know what deal was signed. This may be where Disney's money's come in. I don't know how many Sierras are on that check.
Yeah, it's probably because the people that do own the Rani are not absolute crazy folk like the Unearthly Child guy.
We don't know. Maybe that news will come out of that at some point down the line. But clearly, a deal's been done, so the Rani can be used. I feel fine about it, and as with all things, it's not a good idea or a bad idea. It's a good idea if you execute it well. It's a bad idea if you execute it badly. I feel about it how I feel about the Timeless Child. Do a good job with it, and I'm glad you've done it. She is the last one. Like, she's the only one we haven't done. We've done the Master repeatedly. We've done the Cybermen repeatedly. We've done the Daleks repeatedly. We've had the Great Intelligence. We've had the Sontarans. We've had the Zygons. We hadn't had the Rani yet, and it felt like, in a way, it had to happen, because if it hadn't have happened, people, like Jonathan, you said, every time it's a villainous woman, then you see on social media, oh, it's the Rani. You say it in a way that was kind of irritating you when you were seeing that.
No, I don't think they're saying it's irritating. It's just like, Like, it's fine. People can speculate, and we've had, as soon as Mrs. Flood appeared, it was like, it's the Rani. And then people are like, no, it's not the Rani because of the way she's interacting. I also feel like, I mean, I might be completely wrong. The next 2 episodes might blow it all out of the park and be amazing. And it's not that I just didn't feel excited for it in the same way that I feel excited for other reveals in the past. I think also the themes of these 2 series have been like have almost been fantasy like Doctor Who fight. I suppose this is me trying to have my cake in here, but fantasy like fighting gods and stuff. And we're going to reveal maybe next week it reveals that the Rani is responsible for all these gods, because I wouldn't put that beyond the Time Lord. It just seems like you were all expecting some new Pantheon god person, and actually I just brought back this last from 4 years ago.
Yeah, on that, I actually don't think that's the case at all. I think people have been expecting the Rani because it's what everyone's been saying for like at least 2 years. Everyone, like, this has been expected. I don't think, and that's why I think it was done in the credits. It also, it's very MCU. We know that it is a bit MCU how it's done in the credits, but that's why it's not how the episode ends. The episode ends very much it does end on something huge and dramatic. And
the TARDIS being blown up.
Yeah, and to be fair, that then leading into the reveal of the Rani, you imagine those 2 things are connected. But the TARDIS ending, the door's being blown open, and then you get the credits. That is the thing. So it's okay, so that's the big thing, and then it's like, no, there's something else that's coming. I'm not sure how else they could have done it once the Rani was going to come back, and the key thing's execution. But I don't have a problem with it happening because it's the one thing we haven't done, and it means people can now stop online. Because people can now stop online going on about, well, I think it's the Rani because, no, it's not. But all the stuff you've just mentioned.
Yeah, now they'll just complain about other aspects of her.
Yes, they will complain about other aspects. Yes, they will. But what can the writers do about that? They can't do anything about that. All they can do is, ultimately, I'm like, do whatever your story, tell your story and hope and do it well. And if you do it well, that's all I can ever ask for. And the moment itself, I thought was perfectly fine. I do think there's a bit of, when the bi-generation starts, and Archie Punjabi's first line, I think, is, "Oh, really? How inelegant." That felt a little bit like fan commentary on the fans. But I think how they felt about the first, some of them, of course, like anticipating certain fan complaints and reacting to previous fan complaints the first time we had one of these. But clearly the first one did its job just narratively, because this one is done very quickly. And Doctor Who has never done a mid-credits thing before, a mid-credits twist. So narratively, I don't mean to tell you whether you liked it or didn't like it, but narratively that does work. Because it hadn't done that before. The bi-generation is done very swiftly. You fit it all like in your credits. And I mentioned the episode's 47 minutes. That's probably what makes it 47. Rather than 45, the standard 45, it's that extra scene, because it's one extra scene. Something, because there has been, I don't want to act like everyone hated it, there has been some positive reaction. It does seem the gays in particular have loved it, from just what I've seen online. They very much, and the publicity shots are out now for next week. So our 2 Ranis and Conrad, the proverbial unholy trinity. And just in some of the publicity shots, they are saying that Archie Panjabi is, I believe the phrase is, serving. They're saying lots of referring to her as mother.
Oh God!
Someone said,
sorry. I want to make clear, I am part of this community when I make sarcastic comments.
Yes, you are.
Because really.
No, I'm just saying what other people say.
No, you're just reporting. I mean, I'm not on like Twitter or any socials, but I suppose it'll pop up on Reddit at some point, maybe.
Yeah. I am just the middle hitman here.
It's like, a woman can wear a dress well. She's serving. Sorry.
Whatever.
This is just what some people are saying. Like, I think someone said, I feel like the Huntress is a more appropriate name for her. This is just what, like, there has been a lot of, like, she's serving very camp mother, obviously capital M, mother energy. This is what people are saying. And from the little I know of the Rani, it's played by Kate O'Mara in the early incarnation. That character was seen as very camp. and Kate Omar's performance was very much kind of, I say, chewing on scenery, like gorging on scenery for a lot of the time. And I think when you look at just Archie Punjabi's, I mean, very brief line readings, I can see where there's a comparison, but obviously it'll be done in a more 2025 way. She's not going to act like she's in the 1980s. And a couple of other things and I'd forgotten this, but it has been pointed out online. We are getting Mel Bush back in the finale, and Mel has a lot of experience with the Rani because when the Rani appeared in the show, Mel was the Doctor's companion at the time. So it's a bit like when the older Sarah Jane sees the Daleks again. This is
wow, that'll be cool.
Yeah, this is kind of that for Mel. And she gets drawn back into the episode. It's like, oh, she's back. And another good point someone made. It is very good that and you mentioned it's a person of color, Jen. Specifically, it's a South Asian actor. The name is the Rani. It's kind of odd that it was played by a white woman before. Like, not specifically a woman of color. It's right that it's a South Asian playing a character with this name.
Well, yeah, it was very on the nose, but I was okay with it. In this case, particularly because a person of color, specifically a South Asian actress, is playing the role, which, in my opinion, seems more appropriate as well.
Yeah, and as casting, one thing I'm probably most excited for isn't specifically because look, this could be written shit, it could be garbage. We don't know. We've had problems with some of RTD's finales before, but Archie Punjabi is casting. That's I just said I was excited for Freddie Fox and we saw what happened there. But Archie Punjabi's casting is very good and very fitting for this character. She's one of those many British actors of colour that couldn't get any work in Britain, so went to America, and America kind of embraced them and made them a star. And then all of a sudden, British productions are like, "Hey, do you want to come back?"
Idiot says hi.
Yeah, I immediately recognized her. I was like, I know her. I had to look her up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, she's been on a bunch of American shows. Yep.
Yeah, most of all, I mean, she's won an Emmy, but most of her work, and definitely the work she's best known for, is in America. Because if you look at her career, she's been in a lot of things. It was the Good Wife is what she was in and made her name in. But pre that, she'd been in a lot of stuff you'd have heard of. But she'd have been like 7th on the call sheet. It's like, oh, she was in that. I don't remember in that. And it's like, yeah, because she wasn't getting proper roles. I mean, it's tough for actors generally, but particularly for actors of colour in this country.
I'm just having a look at her first 2 credits on her. East is East and Bend It Like Beckham. Like 2 classic late 90s, early 2000s British Asian influence.
But I don't remember. But I don't remember her in either of them.
No, I assume she just had a bit part.
She had a smaller part. Yeah, I love Bend It Like Beckham. It's one of my favorite films.
But as is often the case, doesn't get any decent work, goes to America, starts getting proper work. And then, as often in this country, we're kind of like, oh, we wasted another one, and we've lost another one to America. So I'm happy to see her in a British production, but I'm like, oh yeah, she could do, if it's written well, she could do real good work with this. And it's a case of, because this had been built up for so long, there was always going to be a measure of, I don't know, like there was just going to be a measure of that no matter what, because it was built up way too much. The only way you were around this is if like the Rani had shown up in Space Babies. That's the only way you could have got around it. Which you obviously wouldn't do that. That'd be a terrible idea. So in and of itself, I have no issue with that. I mean, it's much better than seeing one of the big 3 again. It's much preferable than having
I get. I'm
the Dalek or the Cybermen or the Master again. How many? We've had 3 Masters already.
Yeah, we didn't need those in, but I just like the way it's presented as this big reveal when most of us are left going, I don't know who this is, and it's a balance between that, but I understand it'd be quite difficult. But Russell T Davies, I personally feel like he's showing off his fandom a little bit too much.
Oh yeah, like I said, there's so many Easter eggs that have been popping up, specifically in this series, that shows like, haha, you thought I wasn't a fanboy?
Yeah, and it gets to a bit of like, yeah,
I will say that a lot of
stuff.
I will say a lot of fans do love that. A lot of fans do love that. I'm talking obviously older fans. They do love that. I remember how happy Rick was at Sutek's reveal. I wasn't familiar with Sutek myself. Rick was. That would be the justification. He can be like, well, hold on, that fan there, that fan there, that fan there loved it. That fan's been wanting that for years. It doesn't mean that you're wrong, Jonathan, but there's plenty of justification because there has been. I saw Crystal D, who used to present the fan show. Like, go and look at her reaction on Instagram. She was almost in tears.
Fair enough.
So there are. I don't think there's been like 100%. Nothing's 100% approval rating, and the key thing for me is how it's executed over the next 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. But the fact that she's back, some people are happy with, and I'm perfectly fine with, and mainly because if it wasn't, then we would have kept talking about it. And now the temperature, the balloon can be deflated, the temperature can be turned down, and we can focus a bit more on the story as it is, rather than, but I thought it was going to be the Rani. Or why don't you bring the Rani back? Are we still no Rani? Like, we don't have to talk about that anymore. And I'm kind of glad that's done, if nothing else. So, cause I've got actually a lot of additional observations. So if I come to yours first, Jen.
Oh, observations. Okay. I want a full version of that Dugadoo song. Straight up. Flat out. It was so addictive.
I do like. I don't know. Have you watched Dr. Unleashed yet, Jen? Because
no, I haven't watched it yet. No.
Okay, yeah. Russell's like, nothing to do with me. I'm washing my hands of that song.
Oh well, it's a very earwormy song, and
Ncuti seems to love it. And Ncuti seems to love it. Apparently, it's all Murray Gold. It really seems to split people. There are people who are saying release the Dugadoo cut, and there are some people who are like, I never want to hear that again.
Well, it's kind of like, speaking of Eurovision, remember way back when we got that saxophone meme? It's similar to that. It's annoying, but catchy. Oh my gosh. The poppy thing, the whole poppy, the fact that the planet was harvested for poppies, I was like, oh, really? Are you going to go there? Because I immediately went, I almost put this as my other least favorite thing of the episode. I was like, okay, I know what you're doing with this, because poppies represent Palestinians.
Okay, we'll talk more about that in a minute. I think that's been hugely overstated.
Yeah, that's from a British thing.
I was like, that is well, also I know about Remembrance Day in Britain, but I also know it's a symbol of resilience for the Palestinians, and I was like, oh, really, you're going to go there? Okay. All right. But, yeah, I noticed that. And how have we not talked about Mike and Gary this whole time? They are freaking adorable.
I have them. I do have them as one of my things to talk about. Please go ahead.
I mean, just initially, they looked like they were about to break up. That they were just there because of the fact that Gary worked on the show, and then as the episode progressed, they got back together, and it was adorable, and I just loved it. And I did check the credits; they were a married couple, because the credits have them both with the same surname. They were just adorable as a couple, and the fact that both of them kind of had a crush on the doctor as things were going on, and I was like, get into the queue. That was so cute. They both were like, throuple? Can we do this? It's great. They were just so cute together. Ryland Clark. Most of us over here don't know who he is. I know who he is, but most Americans don't know who he is. But oh my God, all those close-ups show just how much plastic surgery that man has had.
Can we talk about the unsaid storyline in all of this? The Earth has been destroyed. Graham Norton has told us that. How did Ryland get off from being destroyed.
Yeah, they don't explain that at all, except that he's been cryogenically frozen. Yeah. And also, I squeed when I saw Graham Norton. Oh my gosh, I adore Graham Norton. I mean, sure, I'm a Yank, but I adore that man. I watch his show all the time because he's just so hilarious. And the fact that he actually points out cultural differences between America and Europe, and specifically Britain, is always fun whenever he has American guests on. But he's just, I adore the man, and I just squeed when he showed up. Yeah, that was another one of my points. Graham Norton's in this. I'm getting this sense because you notice a lot of times in each episode, Belinda keeps talking about, I got to get back to my mom and dad. I have this weird feeling something bad's going to happen to them in this two-parter. That's going to wreck her so bad because they keep bringing it up, and I don't think it's a coincidence. But we will see.
Emma's mentioned that, or someone else online mentioned that. The parents mentions is happening a lot.
Yeah, so something's going to happen to one or both of them that Belinda's not going to recover from, I think. But again, it could be a red herring, as some other things have been. So we will see. We will see. Yeah, but that's pretty much what I've got.
Okay, your observations, Jonathan?
Right, so I've always mentioned the untold adventure of Ryland Clark being rescued. We can also mention him in that, actually, if you think about his role in this, which seems to be that every year they unfreeze him to present Intergalactic Stellar. Don't have the best life, does he? Like, no one's. I don't know if anyone's mentioned that. They seem to just unfreeze him to present this show one night a year, and then freeze him back up again. Because how far in the future was this? I'd say he hadn't aged, but you're right. He's probably had all sorts of cosmetic treatment done, both in real life and here.
You could argue like it's just headcanon, but like that was his tariff for getting off the destroyed Earth.
Yeah,
almost like, okay, well, you get off Earth safely, but you've got to present the show for the rest of your life.
Maybe it'll be revealed next week. The other thing, well, it was nice to see the Doctor kind of using the skills of all the people he met in this episode to help out at the end as well. And it was like, oh yeah, I've learnt your strengths along the way. Please help us.
Oh yeah. Like here's a nurse, and here's a tech guy, and here's
it was like a D&D party. It was exciting.
Right, exactly.
You briefly mentioned and like I said, there's a lot of plot holes where you stop and think about it. Like, I don't think it went into what actually happened to the Hellions planet. I was a bit confused. I was like, so this corporation bought this planet for this poppy, which can represent many different things. Because not only do you have Remembrance Day, I didn't even know the Palestinian thing. Poppy is obviously heroin, Afghanistan, etc. But then they burnt it all down, or was that the Hellions that burnt it all down?
No, it was the corporation who was burning it to make it into the honey.
What Nakora said is that they took all the seeds. They burnt the planet and took all the seeds so that the Hellions couldn't make any more, and the corporation would have control of it.
Right,
they've got the resource that is mentioned.
Okay. That passed me by. That I probably chatted to Rory at some point, and that's passed us both by. So okay, that's fair enough. But again, it's just that time issue in the episodes, and you can't really go too much into that stuff. You briefly mentioned that Gatwa is getting very excited over the Rani and stuff, serving and stuff, which I get because they get very excited about that kind of stuff. And again, I want to clarify I'm part of this community. Mm-hmm. But when you've already got great representation in the TV show, which you do now, it's not like the old days where you had to queer code people. Do we really need to queer code something new just because it's a well-dressed lady? Because that's all we know about her so far, is she's well-dressed and sassy. So it's like, okay, you don't have to... Yeah, okay.
I would say that's a conversation you lot need to have amongst yourselves. I wouldn't be getting involved in that.
No, don't do that. Well, Rory just walked past. I can... No, they've gone upstairs now. So, yeah, the representation's really, really good, to be fair. And they're a really cute couple and stuff like that. And one last thing. for a show, again, this is going to be a time-limited thing, but for an entire episode, it was basically Die Hard with Eurovision. Not that many songs.
That's how this episode was promoted.
Yeah, not that many songs in it. Obviously, they didn't have time, and they had the wonderful song at the end, which we also haven't mentioned.
The one that's chorusing? Yeah.
But yeah, not many other musical moments, which you might have expected. I don't mind, because I don't really like Eurovision, so having less campy songs in it is all fine by me. But
can I also mention the amount of mullets in this episode was substantial?
Can never have too many mullets. We have a calendar of mullets on the wall at the minute, because Rory's mum was like, "This is so tacky, Rory's going to love it." Anyway, that's completely off topic. But yeah, those are the things. There's probably another half an hour you could have a discussion on the symbolism of what's going on with the Hellions and the poppies and remembrance and things like that. But there is probably more in-depth conversations to be had there that we probably can't cover right now.
Okay, so I will get to the Hellions, but I did love the bit where the director in the truck is asking Rylan to give her some ore.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
no,
some AWE. Which also by the fact, little person, but they didn't mention that she was a little person, which I thought was very well done.
Yeah, no, it's just like, why not? Yeah, why not?
Yeah, there's no point.
I'll give, because Rylan, I mean, with Eurovision and Rylan, this, I don't want to hear none of this Doctor Who is basically making the show for Americans now, because nothing about this there's so much here that unless you're really an American who just knows, you won't know so much. You'll probably think this guy Rylan was an actor, and the Rylan character is a fictional character. But yes, yeah, he went into reality TV and kind of made a name for himself, not through talent, but just personality, and eventually, became a TV presenter.
Yeah, the closest we have around here is Ryan Seacrest. Is the best equivalent, really.
Maybe something like that. And to sum him up quite well, he does an advert for a car insurance company, and at one point in the commercial, he's sitting on the sofa with his mum, and his mum looks to him and just in a wearied voice goes, "You're everywhere," because he is in the media quite a lot. But I thought he was pretty good, even though he's playing himself. I have seen occasions, I'm sure you can remember, when famous people play themselves, and they're not actually that great. They come across quite stilted. It's weird to say someone's not good at being themselves, but, if I didn't know who Rylan was, I would have totally bought him in terms of what he does in this episode. I actually thought he was really good.
And it's not easy playing yourself. There are lots of examples of people playing themselves, and it's awful.
Yeah, it's still in wooden, and he actually was pretty good, didn't he? But he wasn't being asked to do something that's going to win him a BAFTA or anything, but he was a net positive to this episode. I think props to him. The guy's on TV all the time. I don't tend to engage in much of his stuff, but he did what he had to do, and he did it well. Okay, so the poppies. The thing that stood out to me with the poppies is because last week we saw Captain Poppy briefly show up in the story in the engine.
Yeah.
So that was what I thought. That's
I wasn't even
Poppy.
thinking of that. Yeah. That's true.
So Poppy. And as far as so there's been a lot of talk on this line. I don't mind talking about this. There's been quite a lot of talk on the episode itself, and because this episode was on just before Eurovision, and some people have tried to carve a narrative of. They put a hashtag Free Palestine episode just before an occasion where Israel competed in the Eurovision Song Contest. This episode would almost certainly have been written before the Hamas atrocities of 7th of October. So there's no way that it is very unlikely this is a direct, and the Hellions are a direct allegory for the Palestinians.
I understand that. It's just the timing.
Yeah, and they could. But they couldn't have known. They couldn't have known. This was filmed over a year ago. There's no way they could have known. So as far as history isn't full
of people being being exploited by other awful corporations and other empires.
Is exactly that.
It's
this is exactly that. And I'm going to mention Andor in a second, but I'm not going to get this is not an Andor podcast. But Tony Gilroy, who's the showrunner of Andor, was asked both the season 1 and season 2 about, oh, so you're reacting to this character meant to be Trump, and is this meant to be Gaza, or is this meant to be that? And and Tony Guerrero's like, no, this is like based on history. Like, in terms of my influences, it's shit from history that happened like centuries ago. Like, I'm looking at like the Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution. I'm looking at this person that existed, in the 1800s or whatever. Like, you can look at the examples, and they've happened, like you say, Jonathan, for fucking centuries. You don't need to look at the past like 5 years. And this is just, it generally sums up just how ahistorical our culture is, that it's almost like nothing happened in history, like maybe before 2016, before
That's
Trump
fair.
was elected, before Trump and Brexit happened the first time. It's like history apparently didn't exist. So there's no other examples you can look to, and it's a case of, no, we're looking at it as Andor, at least. Andor's leaning on history that is centuries old at times. As far as this goes, as far as the Hellions and the poppies and the music, it comes off more as a generic allegory for any group. And I said earlier, this is about any group of oppressed people and how they react to their subsequent persecution. So yes, it can definitely apply to Palestinians. And I definitely think if you're of Palestinian descent, when Cora's singing that song, I'm definitely sure you're feeling it and feeling some kind of way about it. It was totally normal and understandable. But I think it probably be the same if you're Sudanese descent and watching this, or if you're Congolese descent and watching this. Oh fuck! If you're just of indigenous Australian descent or Native American, you probably feel something similar.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or if you relate, if you've got relatives from the Armenian genocide, or the attempted genocide, or the Srebrenica massacre, or the attempted genocide in Kosovo, or Rwanda. Like, there's lots of different groups of people who can definitely feel, or if you have like a nan who's a Holocaust survivor, like, there's lots of different groups of people that can feel a very deep emotional connection to that aspect of the story. I think it is very, very much, and this is not me trying to like minimize or erase or elide what's happening to the Palestinians right now. But anyway, the timing just doesn't match up, and some people, I think, just too eager to try and craft this into I say modern day story. It's a current day story. It's still happening, and they're so eager to do that you're not paying attention to the facts. You're not paying attention to the chronology. Right. Like in Doctor Who, it's timey-wimey. In real life, it's not. The timing just doesn't. The timing just doesn't fit.
It's also a sci-fi trope. You have plenty of classic sci-fi.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I don't watch Star Trek, but Stargate definitely has a good few episodes of planets being exploited by. And that, there's an entire one where there's a race that helps people, but actually kills them slowly by making them all infertile. And that's it's just a trope. It's a sci-fi trope as well.
It's a genre fiction trope. And Gina Dawson doesn't have much experience in TV, but she does have a lot of experience writing in the world of genre fiction. She has a series of books called Her Majesty's Royal Coven. And so she's worked in this world anyway, so she's very familiar with it as far as storytelling. Like, case in point, when we found out about what poppy honey is, the first thing I thought of was Barbados and sugar. I mean, the Caribbean is sugar, but Barbados in particular was so much sugar was extracted off the back of all those enslaved Africans. That's the first thing I thought of. And
I thought of... Sorry, go ahead.
What I'm saying, that doesn't mean that's the only analogy you can think of. There's so many others. Jane, I'm sure you weren't about to say Barbados. You're probably going to say somewhere else.
I was going to say the American South during the 1800s with the cotton.
Exactly. You could. That fits just as well. You could easily do that. I think sugar, because honey. So I think that's why it sprung to mind. I thought, oh yeah, Barbados. But yes, you could definitely talk about the American South in the same respect. I mean, this is very much Afghanistan, yeah,
with poppies, with
the opium trade.
Britain literally went to war with China in the 1800s because China tried to ban opium, and Britain was like, "Nah, we're making too much money off of that." It's
well, then there's Britain and India with the tea and the spices and
anyway, yeah,
and everything else. I mean,
Britain in the half of the known world.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's totally identical like this, but it's almost identical to what happened to the Gorman planet in the most recent season of Andor. That's just coincidental timing. But those are two different genre fiction shows that the amount of odd similarities between Doctor Who and Andor partly being the same time of that this storyline, Varda Setu, and also Keelan Dunn, who was in The Well, and obviously you and Rick loved her performance so much, Jen. She also shows up at the back end of Andor as well. A lot of curious.
I haven't watched season 2 yet, so
she shows up. I'll just say I won't say who she is, but you will see her briefly appear. And I was like, all right, so she's in that as well. But so yes, some people I think are really reaching, and I don't think you need to reach. Of course, it's analogous, but lots of things sadly are analogous as far as the Hellions go. And you mentioned Mike and Gary, Jen. As far as that relationship, I don't know if you're the Mike in your marriage here, Jonathan, but like Mike thinking the contest is a bit ridiculous and silly.
No, we both don't like Eurovision.
You both hate it. But I did like that, how like one of them loves Eurovision, the other one is like, oh god, like Mike clearly doesn't want to be there. You don't want to be there, and he's very close to saying that sometimes like they should break up. I think he says sometimes I feel we should, and then Gary goes over to the drone to try and get into his seat, but it's like, oh, this is a marriage that's on the rocks, and ironically, they kind of almost fall back in love with each other during the episode.
In a crisis, yeah. Which kind of happens in Die Hard.
Yes, but I like it was how what really sparks it is both of them doing their jobs, like their specific skill sets, is what really seems to kind of save the marriage. And I think you've already mentioned it, Jen, but like one big problem of like Russell 1.0 was the constant swooning over the Doctor and David Tennant, and well, that's still happening, but this time it's just men swooning over this Doctor.
Yeah, that's true.
Rather than women. That hasn't actually changed, but I think it's been mentioned less because our heteronormative society is that people aren't like, no, people are still swooning, it's just men doing it this time. But I did like the internet use of Eurovision, of how, and it didn't have to be Eurovision, it could be lots of things, but how some things that even trivial can actually be of huge importance to people. And I couldn't give a shit about Eurovision personally. I find the whole thing totally escapes me. But lots of people do love it. And Gary loves this Interstellar version. It is important to him.
Let people like things.
I mean, he had a T-shirt on. That said 803rd 803rd. Like, yeah, that's been going for a while.
I did find this. I mean, we didn't get lots of songs, but I did find the songs quite plausible. Like they felt like, yeah, that would fit. That's the kind of thing you might hear at Eurovision. And like a couple of the Eurovision trivia bits is the montage when everyone's been brought back bit by bit. They used the Buck Fizz song, Making Your Mind Up, which was the British winner in whatever fucking year it was. I know the 70s, I think.
They mentioned
it's a famous song over
they
here.
mentioned, yeah, and they mentioned
there's probably lots of Eurovision Easter eggs in that museum.
Well, one definitely. One I did notice was the use of the singer Dana International, who I believe was the first ever trans winner. Because she's a
that's right.
I remember. I do remember. I think maybe '95. I do remember her winning, and also to totally reinforce the idea of this is totally pro-Palestine, totally anti-Israeli. But Dana International is Israeli, so if that was what they were going for, they clearly failed in that respect. Which is why I just don't buy into this this whole like put the watermelons away. Not most of the time, but for this episode, put the watermelons away because that's not what's happening here. Like, you look at the facts. As far as the Hellions go, I really like the line of when the siege of was it Harmony? I forget the name of the planet. Harmony something.
It was the space station. Yeah,
the space station. And the floor manager saying to Win, I took a chance on you. And it is that like you should be grateful. Like, how could you do this to me? I gave you a job. No one else gives Hellions jobs, and it's like that's a very nice. Not that it justifies winning kids' behavior, but it's a very good line of being a second-class citizen. Of I give you a crumb, and you should be so happy about that. Sorry, Jonathan, will you say something then?
No, it was just more that the line did hit, did it?
Yes.
It was like, you think you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, you think you're doing them a favour rather than just treating them with basic respect. And also, one of the things I did mention how I wasn't always loving the performance, but one thing I did like was when they did initially break the safety shield and not kill everyone, but look like they might have done. But we come back to them, and they're not like gleeful about it. Like, they're not totally bloodthirsty. They almost seem to have slight regrets of the kind of thing of course, we're going to arm struggle and we're going to make a statement and show them who we are. And then you do it and you're like, oh, fuck, we just killed a load of people. I mean, you do have to kind of live with that. And they're read as quite young. So sometimes the thing that sounds justifiable in theory, then you actually do it and you realize you've actually, I mean, they hadn't, of course, but they thought they'd kill people. And, the line about, well, it's what you expect from me. Like, that stuff I thought was pretty good. And it comes back, I think, to some of the points you've made of just time. Maybe we had more time, we would have got a bit deep into that. But those bits in and of themselves I liked. With Belinda's performance, I did notice that, and this is before things start to go to shit, I've never seen Belinda as like fun and happy and like was giggly and giddy at being at this contest. Because she's the first one that says, oh, we're staying. And it just goes against, it's not like incongruous for a character, but it just goes against the almost weight. She's almost been carrying a bit of a weight of worry and seriousness the whole time because she's trying to get back home. This is the first time when we see her almost just totally relaxed, totally have fun, and she's got like a smile on her face the whole time. And I think it maybe partly explains when she thinks the doctor's dead, she goes almost into a meltdown, a total panic, and Cora's there, and Cora almost plays a surrogate doctor to her in that moment, calming her down, asking her name, introducing herself. It's very much what the doctor would do if they met a companion for the first time in that scenario. And Cora has that line that you're alive, and emphasizing that, and you're realizing that's a double meaning because it's speaking to her own existence as a Hellion, whatever she's gone through, she's still alive. She fit. And this is why I think it's a much broader allegory than some people may. I think some people try to make a trans allegory because Juno Dawson's trans herself. And I'm like, that's there, but I don't think it's the only thing. I think it is a bit more deliberately generalized than that because Cora feels like she's someone trying to pass, which definitely is something that I know exists amongst trans people. It also existed a few decades ago among Black and Asian people who were really light-skinned. They try and pass as white or not their race. There's a good film on Netflix called Passing that Rebecca Hall directed about that. And Rebecca Hall has that history in her own family.
Yeah.
Queer people, not just trans people, queer people generally. You're a nice kind, like 90s. You're a nice kind of gay. You do all the stuff that we do, but you just happen to be gay. You're not one of those flamboyant types.
Yeah, and this wasn't that long ago either.
No.
That kind of rhetoric was so. I mean, I'm sure it exists, but when it was really common. And just a couple of the things of Cora, like, because she's dismissed by Wynn initially, but it shows in that, her big set piece singing scene that she does have something to contribute to the Hellion cause for fair treatment and liberation with her singing. That with her, the thing that we mentioned earlier about the doctor picking other people's skill sets out to help him. What's Cora's skill set? Her voice, her singing voice. And she probably didn't have the courage to do it before, but she does have the courage to show Hellions as beings also deserving of respect with her voice. It's also notable that when she mentions where she's from, there's shouts of some outrage from the audience. Like, that's where I definitely thought, okay, that feels quite like if someone at Eurovision last night said like Free Palestine, it's like, okay, that might be a reaction from the crowd. Like that, I think you can definitely apply. the cause of the Palestinians to that. I mean, the actor that plays Cora, Miriam Teague Lee, because I was like, where do I recognize her from? Her background is mainly on stage. She's done a lot of screen work. There's been a musical over here called Juliet, which I think is a Romeo and Juliet story, but from Juliet's point of view. And she plays Juliet. And if you've kind of been on the tube in London consistently over the past 2.5 years, you've seen her face a lot because the poster is kind of just her face. I was like, that's where I recognize her from. I don't think you will, Jonathan. Maybe you will, Jen. But I saw some mentions online because this episode mentions Delta Wave a couple of times. And people are saying that's an Easter egg. We're like, oh, they mentioned Delta Wave. Does that mean anything to you?
Not off the top of my head, but I'm sure it'll be explained somewhere, someplace.
Yeah, and if any one of us three would know, like, most likely be you. Like, if you know, listeners, like, feel free to email in because I'm sure it references something. The way people are talking about it, that references something, but I don't know. The nice little bit about why they can't call for help, like gambling. Let's just say the proliferation of gambling has not slowed down. But that would make sense for this world.
I kind of chuckled at that. I was like, oh yeah, so it's still, okay, that makes sense. I understand.
That kind of stuff happens now with spot betting, doesn't it? Where you have someone like... Yeah, I've watched a documentary on that.
Yeah, I mean, America, it's only just starting to happen in America. It's obviously been very commonplace over here. It's a rare example of America actually copying us. But yeah, that is a very, very common thing over here. I know he technically wasn't in space, but the Doctor did a little bit better this time. The last time he was floating in space because he went blind. I know he wasn't technically in space, but I did think a little bit of the Oxygen episode. And in how Susan saves the Doctor, we'll see what happens with Susan next couple of weeks. I'm sure there'll be more, but it felt a little bit like use the Force. It just quite incongruous. Now, I think us three probably recognised who Susan was immediately. I recognised, many older fans recognised, but if you know nothing about Susan Foreman, you probably won't understand that fucking thing because they don't. The Doctor,
Rory didn't know who it was.
Yeah, because the Doctor doesn't even really talk about it. The Doctor kind of briefly mentions it and then's like, "Oh no, don't worry about it," and doesn't talk about it because he doesn't want to. And I'm not saying it's bad, but yeah, I kind of think you might be in the dark right now. So I love seeing her. I love seeing her. And also, there've been rumours about, again with the Rani, there've been rumours about Carol Ann Ford coming back for a while. She was at the premiere of the Star Beast, the party of the Star Beast, and she was mentioned, as in the character, I mean. Susan did get mentioned by the Doctor towards Ruby in the Devil's Cord, and there was a lot of, the Doctor's never mentioned Susan. And it's like, why is the Doctor suddenly mentioning Susan? There's a lot of Carol Ann Ford's coming back. And
I did notice that. I was like, why is Susan suddenly prevalent again? Besides the fact that she's this last surviving member of the original first Doctor cast. I mean, that's a big thing. But they're making a big deal about she's coming back in some form, and she was in those little, like you said, Jedi-ish use the Force moments, but she specifically kept saying, "Come back to me, grandfather." And I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. Either we'll get another cameo from the first Doctor, who's obviously now played by another actor, or something. I don't know. We'll see. But she's obviously important for some reason.
Yeah, and just a final thing, Susan, that someone pointed out online, because her last appearance was in the Dimensions in Time one-off episode with multi-Doctor episode. When the fifth Doctor shows up, Peter Davison, Carol Ann Ford is looking at him in a way that one should not look at their grandfather. And someone said, "Well, what's she going to look? What will her look be when she sees Ncuti for the first time?" I've just seen it online. I hadn't seen it before. I've now seen it. Yes, Carol Ann Ford is looking at Peter Davison. She's mentally undressing him, it appears. So yes, that's my observations. So Jonathan, if we come to your MVP for the episode.
I know I had some issues with a little bit of the writing, but I really like how Juno Dawson took what on paper should have been my nightmare episode of Camp Doctor Who, Eurovision, and made it really enjoyable, and I really liked it. So yeah, I hope she gets more more chance to flex her muscles in the Doctor Who world.
Yeah, I think just a quick PS to that, it's been a real high point of this series. We had 3 first-time writers in this series so far: Ashama Ranger Walfall, Ino Ellems, Juno Dawson, and 1 trans woman and 2 black people. And they've all done, at the very least, good jobs. They've done good to great jobs. And all of them, you're like, oh, please, like, that's broadened the potential for future writers. More, I think, more from all of them. I'm definitely with you on that. And yes, I as I've said, that this because you're right. When we heard about the Interstellar Song Contest, you see a few of the stills and stuff. You think, and this is the last episode before the finale, and you're like, oh, this is the cool down episode. Mm-hmm. This is just the fun little bit of filler before we get to the real serious, quote unquote, serious stuff. And that was not the case at all. This actually is if you pay attention to the narrative, it's a very serious episode dealing with weighty themes and actually helps set the finale up. It's not a throwaway, disposable episode by any stretch. Your MVP, please, Jen.
Also, Juno. I think for her first outing, it was really good. There were some flaws, but I don't think that was her fault. And I wish well for her to write more TV episodes, whether it be Who or anywhere else. I think she's off to a great start.
So my MVP is Ncuti Gatwa again this week. I've already mentioned the scene when he gets angry. I think he's outstanding, so I won't belabor that point too much again. And maybe this actually was part of your issue, Jen, with it jarring the transit. No, sorry, not yours. Sorry, Jen, yours, Jonathan, with jarring after the ostensible deaths. But when Ncuti gets back in the ship using the confetti cannon, talking of cameras.
Yes, yeah. I knew there was something that triggered it as a confetti cannon.
Very Wall-E-esque.
Yes. Yeah, some people have pointed that out, Jen, actually. I've seen some comparisons to that scene from Wall-E as well. But I thought he did I haven't seen a lot of this from some really great physical comedy from him. When he goes through the airlock and spins around, is about to say something really important, and then falls over.
Yes.
And when he's revived, and there's the deep breaths as you've been revived, and he stops and just goes, oh. And there were just a couple of little physical bits of comedy. It was a little bit, I was not wholly familiar with that side of your game, sir. That was, I thought that was very entertaining, quite funny. I did love, probably piggyback one of your points, Jonathan. I did also like how he as the Doctor, has to think really fast and use his brain to figure out how to save everyone. He's talking fast as well in those scenes. And it was a problem that not because of how Jodie Whittaker acted, but how it was written. A problem I had with Jodie's Doctor is that we didn't get to see Jodie's Doctor be smart enough and clever enough. And sometimes you haven't seen that with Ncuti, particularly in his first series. We've seen it more here. In this one in particular, he has to really engage and exercise his brain, because if he doesn't, everyone's fucked. So he's constantly, that brain of his has got 100 miles an hour. And his voice, how he's talking really fast. And that I like when the Doctor does that. Again, with the Doctor being angry, I also like when the Doctor does that. The Doctor should be, because the Doctor isn't necessarily physically violent most of the time, but the Doctor is very mentally agile, and we got to see me mentally agile here. And you're always happy when I see the Doctor like that. Something I noticed after I'm blanking episode 2 now. What was episode 2? Revolution. Lux, that's it. Yeah, something I noticed after Lux, Ncuti was doing almost as a signature for him, putting his hands behind his back at times, and he did it again here, particularly towards the end. I think that's his, like Bill Hartnett's first Doctor, always pulling the lapels, grabbing hold of the lapels of his jacket. Other Doctors having certain visual tics as themselves. Peter Capaldi brings the old electric guitar out, and Ncuti puts his hands behind his back sometimes. Almost as I'm being very serious and authoritative now. And whether he is or isn't is not the point. I like that he's found a thing. Every Doctor should have a thing like that, and that's Ncuti's. And I really love when he figures out via Rylan, this is how I save everyone. We sit with Belinda, and there's just a slow zoom on him, and he's looking very intense and serious. And moments like that are a continuation of just what I've seen from him, where he is just he's in such a groove with his character. he's really nailing his iteration of the Doctor. He's got it. He's got it. And things like putting his hands behind his back, things how you see him when he's angry, things when he's talking really fast, things where he has that intense look, and you know that his brain, the cogs in his brain are whirring. All of that, we weren't getting that a year ago. And because you don't get it in the first year. You always need a year. And in the second year, I kept saying it, and I was, not I say 100% confident, but very confident that, don't worry, it'll be fine this series. And it has been fine this series. And he's been excellent this series. And it's not my favourite incarnation of the Doctor, but it's his. It's totally his now. He's not like anyone else. It doesn't feel like he's copying anyone else. He's a photocopy of other versions of the Doctor. This is him. He's been really, really excellent. And look, we don't know if the reports of the show coming back in 2027 are true. We don't know if the rumours about he shot a regeneration scene are true. I don't know. But I hope that I hope he's got more than 2 episodes to go, because I'm immensely enjoying his current work as a Doctor. Sorry, nothing else we need to add? I can finish up there.
Nope, all done.
I'm good.
Okay, so if you have any thoughts on what we've just spoken about, you can email us at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com. That's analysing spelled with S. And we are across social media at analysingdw. So Jen and Jonathan, thank you for both being here.
Thank you very much.
A pleasure.
And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to analyse Wishworld. Until next time.